never thought I'd find myself writing something like this, but here we are. My life took a rapid turn, and I need to get it off my chest. My name is Brian, and I've been married to Jessica for the better part of 6 years. We had dreams, plans, and a startup that we were working on together. We were the picture of a tech-savvy couple, coding late into the night, sharing ideas and daydreaming about our innovations. It felt like we were in our own little world, until that world took a hard hit. Things started to shift about 4 months ago. I noticed Jessica was coming home later than usual, claiming she was at the co-working space or that she had to meet with a potential investor. I didn't think much of it at first. We were in the grind of launching our app, and I was knee-deep in coding. It seemed normal, stressful, yes, but normal in the startup life. Yet, as the weeks went by, I began to see subtle changes in her behavior. Her phone became a fortress. She would keep it face down, and any notifications that popped up were quickly dismissed. The texts she received seemed to elicit smiles that didn't involve me. I dismissed it as paranoia, but the feeling in my gut grew heavier. I brushed it off as the typical startup stress, but deep down, something was off. One evening, when Jessica was working late, I decided to take a break from coding and catch up on some of her past projects to see if there was anything I could help with. I booted up her laptop, expecting to find some code snippets or perhaps a few drafts of business plans. Instead, I stumbled upon a series of messages that made my heart drop. I found a chat thread between Jessica and some guy named Mark. The messages were flirty, and then they escalated. I sat there frozen, reading how she described intimate moments with him, the way she wrote about how much fun they had together, and how she couldn't wait to see him again. My mind raced as I tried to comprehend what I was seeing. The betrayal sliced through me like a knife. Suddenly, all her late nights, her evasiveness, her excuses, they all made sense. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to confront her. I spent the next hour packing the living room, my mind a whirlwind of emotions, rage, sadness, disbelief. Eventually, I decided to approach the situation calmly. I waited for her to come home, and when she did, my heart was pounding like a drum. "Hey, can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sure, what's up?" she replied, her casual tone rubbing me the wrong way. "I found something on your laptop," I said, watching her face change. The color drained, and I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes as she realized what I was talking about. "What do you mean?" she stammered, feigning confusion. I didn't waste time beating around the bush. "I saw the messages, Jessica, the ones with Mark. You've been cheating on me." Her reaction was something I never expected. Instead of the remorse I hoped for, she let out a sharp laugh as if I'd just told a joke. "Oh, please, are you really going to believe that?" You know how guys like to twist words around. Her response was infuriatingly dismissive. "Twist words? You're the one who was writing about sex and how much fun you were having. How can you stand there and lie to my face?" I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, disbelief, and a deep sense of betrayal all crashing over me. She shrugged, crossing her arms defiantly. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. You're always coding or lost in your world. I needed someone to talk to, that's all it was." "That's all it was," I echoed incredulously. "What kind of excuse is that? You think that justifies cheating?" And then it hit me. She wasn't going to take responsibility. She wasn't even going to admit that anything was wrong. In that moment, I realized I was standing in front of someone I didn't even recognize anymore. Someone who was willing to throw away everything we built for a fling. The confrontation spiraled into a messy argument. I could feel the weight of our years together slipping away. There was a part of me that wanted to fight for us, to salvage what we had, but the other part screamed that there was no going back from this betrayal. She was adamant about her innocence, spinning her web of lies. I left the room, my head spinning, feeling like I had just been hit by a truck. As I sat in the dark, I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. I was struggling to process this tidal wave of emotions. How could someone I loved and trusted turn into a stranger before my eyes? It was happening in real time, and I was the one left picking up the pieces. At that moment, I realized this wasn't just about her betrayal. This was about me regaining control over my life. I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. I wasn't going to let her actions define my worth. I was going to strike back with my own plan. but I needed time to think, and I needed to figure out how to move forward from this. As the days passed, I felt like I was living in a fog. The confrontation with Jessica had left me reeling, and each moment stretched into eternity as I tried to make sense of my new reality. I was oscillating between anger and sorrow, and I found it hard to focus on anything other than the betrayal. I needed a way to channel all this energy, this pain, into something productive rather than allowing it to consume me. I started by diving deeper into our startup. I buried myself in the code we had developed, the vision we had shared. It was bittersweet. The app we built together was supposed to be our dream realized, a testament to our partnership. Yet now, every line of code felt tainted, a reminder of the lies that had infiltrated our lives. I would sit for hours, fingers flying over the keyboard, working on new features and refining the algorithm that would set our app apart. In those moments, I found a strange solace. Coding became my escape. I was building something that she could no longer be a part of, and that felt empowering. It wasn't just about the app anymore. It was about reclaiming my identity and strength. I wanted to prove to myself that I could succeed without her, but I wasn't naive. I knew that I needed to cut ties with Jessica in a more definitive way. The startup was a joint venture, and with it came shared access to everything, accounts, platforms, you name it. I decided it was time to sever those ties. I went through our joint accounts, meticulously removing her access, changing passwords, and transferring ownership wherever I could. Each click felt like a small victory, and it gave me a sense of control I desperately needed. But amid all this, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I wanted her to understand the gravity of her actions, to feel the impact of her choices. I started to think about how I could make her realize that what she did wasn't just a mistake. It was a violation of trust, of everything we built together. It wasn't just about revenge, but about showing her the consequences of her actions. I began formulating a plan. I knew that once I launched our app, I could take it public without her involvement. It was a risk, but it was one I was willing to take. The truth is, I had faith in what we created. I was proud of the innovation we had developed. I envisioned a launch party, a big reveal to the world, where I would showcase everything we had worked on together but without her. I started working late nights again, just like in the early days. I wanted to build something she would never forget. I wanted her to see that while she was out there betraying me, I was capable of turning our shared dreams into reality, all on my own. I engaged with potential investors, pitched our app, and even reached out to some tech influencers. My enthusiasm for the project reignited with a fierce determination that surprised me. As I continued this journey, I also reached out to friends and family, confiding in them about what had happened. I needed a support system, and I sought the advice of those I trusted. They listened to my story, offered their sympathy, and encouraged me to focus on my well-being. I felt stronger with every conversation, and their encouragement propelled me forward. Meanwhile, Jessica continued her charade. She attempted to act as if nothing had happened, asking me about the startup and trying to insert herself into my work. It infuriated me. She had no idea of the plans I was hatching, the way I was carving out a future without her. When she would query about meetings or ask for updates, I learned to respond with vague answers. I let her think she was still part of the process while I quietly executed my plan. It was a game of chess, and I was determined to be several moves ahead. Then came the day of the big reveal. The app was complete, polished, and ready to go live. I scheduled a launch event inviting investors, local entrepreneurs, and the tech community. I was nervous, but there was also a thrill that coursed through me. This was my moment. I had turned pain into passion, betrayal into a driving force. As the day arrived, I stood at the venue, an upscale co-working space that felt alive with energy. I watched as people trickled in, excited chatter filling the air. It felt surreal. I was at the center of my own creation, and the thought of Jessica sitting on the sidelines fueled my fire even more. I had worked hard, had poured every ounce of frustration and hurt into this app, and here it was, ready to take flight. But suddenly, I spotted Jessica in the crowd. She looked out of place, her eyes scanning the room, searching for me. My heart raced. How had she found out about this? Why was she here? I felt a mix of dread and defiance as I realized she was about to step back into my life, and I needed to be ready for whatever confrontation might ensue. This was it. My journey of healing, of empowerment, was leading to this pivotal moment. I had to stay focused and remind myself of why I was here. I wasn't just launching an app. I was launching myself into a new chapter of my life, one that was distinct from the one I had shared with her. No matter what happened next, I was determined to take charge of my future. As I stood there, heart racing and palms sweaty, I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Jessica had made her way to the venue, and I felt the weight of her presence even before she reached me. I forced myself to focus on the task at hand. This launch was for the app, our app, and I needed to present it with confidence. But the sight of her was like a punch to the gut. She approached me, a forced smile plastered across her face. "Brian, wow, this place looks amazing," she exclaimed, pretending to be genuinely impressed. Inwardly, I bristled. It was like she was a stranger masquerading as someone who cared about my work. "Thanks, Jess. Glad you could make it," I replied coolly, trying to keep my tone neutral. I didn't want to make a scene, but my mind was racing with thoughts of her betrayal. I could see the curiosity in her eyes as she glanced around the room, taking in the crowd of potential investors and tech enthusiasts. "So, what's the plan for the presentation?" she asked, leaning in closer, as if she still had some claim to the event. I wasn't about to let her in on my strategy. "It's all set. Just a few minutes before I go on stage," I said curtly, feeling a rush of adrenaline. The moment was approaching, and I wanted to be clear. "Just so you know, this is my show tonight. You're not part of the presentation." Her expression faltered for a brief moment, and I noted the annoyance flashing across her face, but she quickly masked it with her usual bravado. "Oh, I get it. You want to do this solo." "That's fine," she said, though her tone dripped with sarcasm. It was clear she thought she was still part of my life, that she could walk in and out as she pleased after everything that had happened. I felt a surge of determination. She was in for a rude awakening tonight. As the time for the presentation approached, I took a deep breath and mentally prepared myself. I wanted to capture the attention of the audience and present the app not just as another product, but as a testament to resilience and innovation. It was time to show the world what I could achieve without her. I stepped onto the stage, the spotlight hitting me like a warm embrace. The chatter quieted down and all eyes were on me. I glanced at Jessica in the crowd, and for a moment I felt a flicker of uncertainty. But then I remembered why I was here. This wasn't about her. It was about me and the vision I had brought to life. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I started, my voice steady. "I'm excited to introduce you to our groundbreaking app, designed to revolutionize the way we connect over shared interests and projects." I launched into my pitch, detailing the features, the user interface, and the problem it solved. As I spoke, I watched the audience lean in, nodding, engaged. I felt their energy, and with every word I grew more confident. I showcased the app's unique algorithm and how it excluded betrayal, a nod to my personal journey. It was a clever play on words that left an impression, and I could see heads nodding in understanding. They liked it. Eventually, I reached the conclusion of my presentation. I opened the floor for questions, and I was met with a barrage of interest from investors eager to know more. My heart swelled with pride. I was standing on my own 2 feet, showing everyone that I could thrive without Jessica's presence. Amid the questions, I noticed Jessica shifting uncomfortably in her seat. Her face was a mix of disbelief and annoyance. It was a sight I found oddly satisfying. She had expected to waltz in and still be a part of this journey, but I had taken the reins. Once the Q&A wrapped up, I stepped down from the stage, adrenaline coursing through my veins. People approached me, praising my work and expressing interest in partnerships. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I had done it. I had launched our app successfully and made a statement in the process. But as I mingled with the crowd, Jessica found me again. "Brian, can we talk?" she said, her tone suddenly serious. I could feel my anger bubbling to the surface. "What's there to talk about, Jess?" I asked, crossing my arms. You had your chance and you threw it away. I know I messed up, but I want to understand what's going on. This was supposed to be ours." She protested, desperation creeping into her voice. I shook my head, unable to contain my frustration. "No, you decided it wasn't ours when you chose to cheat. You lost that right the moment you betrayed me." She opened her mouth to argue further, but I cut her off. "You don't get to come in here and act like you're still a stakeholder in this company or in my life. I've worked my ass off for this, and I'm not interested in playing the blame game with you anymore." Jessica's expression shifted, and I could see the hurt in her eyes, but I felt nothing. I had moved past that initial pain and was now firmly rooted in my decision to reclaim my life. "Just let me explain," she pleaded, her voice softer now. "I made a mistake. I was lost and I didn't know how to communicate with you. You were always so focused on the app and I felt neglected." "I don't care for excuses anymore, Jess," I replied sharply. "You don't get to rewrite what happened. You chose to cheat and that's on you. I'm done with the blame game. I'm moving on." With that, I turned my back on her, leaving her standing there, stunned. As I continued to engage with the crowd, I felt a heavy weight lifting off my shoulders. I was finally taking control of my life, and the future felt brighter than it had in months. The night carried on, filled with congratulatory remarks and enthusiastic discussions about the app. As the event drew to a close, I realized that I had taken a significant step forward. I had turned my pain into purpose, and while Jessica may have thought she could still play a role in my life, I had shown her that I was capable of so much more without her. I left the venue feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. I had faced my demons and come out on the other side, armed with newfound strength and clarity. I knew that my journey was far from over, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next with open arms. My future was mine to shape, and I intended to make it count. The days that followed the launch were a blur of excitement and new opportunities. My app was gaining traction, and the initial reactions from investors and users were overwhelmingly positive. It felt like I had finally broken free from the chains of my past, and I was completely focused on building my new future. But in the back of my mind, Jessica lingered like a shadow, a lingering reminder of the betrayal I had endured. I kept my distance from her, focusing on the app's growth and the partnerships that were emerging. I was receiving emails and calls from potential collaborators, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Every late night spent coding now seemed worth it. I was transforming my pain into progress, and I was determined to keep that momentum going. But then, out of nowhere, Jessica reached out to me again. We hadn't spoken much since the launch, aside from the occasional cold interactions when we crossed paths in our shared living space. I was still living in the apartment we had once shared, and it felt weird being there without any warmth or love between us. It was just a hollow shell now. "Can we talk?" she asked one evening, her voice softer than I remembered. I was hesitant, but something in her tone made me curious. I agreed, hoping it might provide some closure or clarity. When she walked into the living room, I noticed a change in her demeanor. She looked less confident, almost vulnerable. It was strikingly different from the cocky attitude she had the night of the launch. For a moment, I almost felt pity for her. "Can we sit?" she suggested, gesturing to the couch. "Sure," I replied, taking a seat across from her, keeping a cautious distance. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she started, her eyes downcast. "About us, about what happened. I know I messed up, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I wanted to apologize, like really apologize." I crossed my arms, skeptical. "Is this about guilt, or do you actually mean it?" "I mean it," she insisted. "I was selfish and stupid. I never meant to hurt you, but I was scared. I felt like you were losing yourself in this startup and I didn't know how to reach you." I listened, but my heart remained guarded. "You don't get to justify cheating because you felt neglected. You could have talked to me instead of going behind my back." "I know," she exclaimed, frustration creeping into her voice. I realized that now. I was caught up in my own insecurities and didn't think it through. I let myself get wrapped up in something that was never real. "I miss you, Brian. I miss us." Her words hung in the air, and I felt a mix of emotions surging inside me. There was a part of me that wanted to believe her, but there was another part that remembered the pain she had caused me. Jessica, this isn't just about missing what we had. You shattered my trust. I understand. She said, her voice softer now. But I've been talking to a therapist and she's helping me see things differently. I want to be better for myself and for you. I want to understand what went wrong in our relationship. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. You've been going to therapy? Seriously? Yes, she replied, meeting my gaze. I don't expect everything to go back to normal overnight, but I want to try and work on myself. I want to be better for whoever I end up with, whether that's you or someone else. I just don't want to lose you completely. Her vulnerability was disarming, and I could see that she was genuinely trying to change. But could I trust her again? A part of me was terrified at the thought of reopening that door, only to be hurt all over again. I don't know, Jess, I said slowly. It's going to take time. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. I need to know that you're serious about this. What are you willing to do? I'm willing to do whatever it takes, she said earnestly. I've been reading self-help books, and I'm even working on my own projects to keep myself busy and fulfilled. I want to become the person I should have been, someone who communicates and doesn't run away when things get tough. The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't ignore the scars that were left behind. It's going to take a lot for me to even consider us. We need to create boundaries, and I need to see real changes over time. You've hurt me deeply. I understand, she nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I'm not asking for you to take me back right now. I just want a chance to show you that I can change, that I can be better. I sat in silence, weighing her words. The conversation was unlike any I'd had with her since the affair. I could sense a shift in her perspective, but could I believe it? After everything, I wasn't ready to jump back into the relationship we had. I need some space, I finally said, my voice steady but firm. I need time to think about everything. You've given me a lot to consider, but I'm not ready to make any decisions right now. Okay, she said quietly, her disappointment evident. I can respect that. I just want you to know I'm genuinely trying to be better. As she left the room, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. For the first time, I saw a glimpse of the person I had fallen in love with, and it was a confusing mix of hope and caution. I knew I had to keep moving forward with my own life, but there was also a part of me that wanted to believe in second chances. The next few days were filled with a mix of productivity and reflection. I threw myself into my work, but I couldn't shake the conversation with Jessica from my mind. I was finally starting to find my footing in the aftermath of her betrayal, but now I was faced with uncertainty about the future of our relationship. I spent hours contemplating my next steps. Should I allow her back into my life? Should I give her the chance to show me that she could change? Or was it too late for us? I wanted to be cautious, but I also didn't want to close the door on potential healing. All I knew for sure was that I had come too far to go back to the person I once was. I had carved a new path for myself, and now I had to decide whether Jessica could be a part of that path moving forward. The answer didn't come easily, and I found myself grappling with deep questions about love, forgiveness, and how to truly move on. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself wrestling with a mix of emotions: confusion, hope, resentment. My app continued to thrive, gaining traction in the tech community, and I felt a sense of pride with every new user signing up. It was as if I had created something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal, something that was uniquely mine. And yet, in the corners of my mind, Jessica lingered, her presence a constant reminder of the complicated feelings I was trying to navigate. Jessica had been respectful of the space I requested, but she would occasionally send me texts, usually checking in on how the app was doing or simply asking how I was holding up. Each message was like a double-edged sword. Part of me appreciated her effort to reach out, but another part of me felt a surge of anger at the audacity she had to believe she could still be part of my life after everything. One evening, as I was winding down from a long day of work, I received a message from her. Can we meet to talk? I think I've made some breakthroughs in therapy that I really want to share with you. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the keyboard. I didn't want to shut her out completely, but I also didn't want to dive back into a conversation that could lead to more heartache. But something in her text seemed different, more earnest, and I decided to give her a chance. I agreed to meet her the next day at a coffee shop nearby. When I arrived at the cafe, I spotted her sitting at a small table by the window, fiddling with the cup in front of her. She looked nervous, and the sight of her made my heart race. I wasn't sure what to expect from this meeting, but I steeled myself for whatever emotions might surface. "Hey," I greeted her as I sat down, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Hey," she replied, her voice soft. She looked up at me with a mix of hope and anxiety. "Thanks for meeting me. Of course, you said you had some breakthroughs." I prompted, shifting the conversation to the reason we were there. "Yes," she said, taking a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of self-reflection, and I've come to terms with the fact that I was projecting my own insecurities onto our relationship. I thought I was losing you, but the truth is, I was the one distancing myself. I didn't communicate properly, and instead of reaching out to you, I made the worst possible choice." Her honesty caught me off guard, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. "I understand that you're working on yourself, but how can I trust that you've really changed?" I asked, my voice steady but cautious. "I know it's going to take time to rebuild that trust," she replied earnestly. "But I want you to know that I'm committed to being a better person, whether it's for myself or for you. I've been learning about healthy communication and how to express my feelings without resorting to betrayal. I've realized that love isn't just about the good times, it's about facing challenges together." I listened, carefully weighing her words. Part of me wanted to believe her, to see that glimmer of hope she was offering, but another part cautioned me to remain guarded. "What have you done differently since we last spoke?" I pressed. "I've started journaling my thoughts and feelings every day," she explained, her voice gaining more confidence. "I've also joined a support group. Hearing other people's stories has helped me realize that I'm not alone in my struggles. It's taught me how to communicate better and understand my own emotions." As she spoke, I could see the passion behind her words. But could passion alone heal the wounds she had caused? "That's a good start, but it's just the beginning," I replied, my heart still hesitant. "I know," she nodded. "I'm not asking you to jump back into a relationship with me right now. I just want a chance to show you that I'm changing. I want to earn your trust back, and I understand it's going to take time and consistent effort." We talked for hours, diving deep into our past, our relationship, and our respective growth journeys. There was a vulnerability in her words that I hadn't seen before. She genuinely seemed to be working towards becoming a better person, but the question lingered in my mind. Was it enough for me to consider letting her back into my life? As we wrapped up our meeting, I felt torn. Jessica had made strides in acknowledging her wrongdoings, and there was a part of me that wanted to believe in her transformation. But the scars of betrayal still loomed large, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to reopen that door. "Let's take this slow," I finally said, my voice steady. "I'm not ready to jump back into anything, but I'm willing to see how you progress. I think we both need time to figure out what we want." "Thank you," she replied, her eyes brightening with hope. "I appreciate that. Even if it's just a chance to show you that I'm serious about changing, I'll take it." As I left the coffee shop, I felt a mix of confusion and clarity. I wasn't sure what the future held for us, but I knew I had carved out a space for potential healing. It was a step forward, albeit a tentative one, and I was proud of myself for setting boundaries while still opening the possibility for growth. In the following weeks, I kept my distance while remaining open to occasional conversations. I focused on my work, and my app continued to grow, gaining attention and even recognition in the tech community. I was learning to navigate my new life without her while still acknowledging the complexity of our shared history. But as I watched Jessica work on herself from a distance, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was genuinely trying to change. Each time we spoke, I could sense her determination to be better. And while I remained cautious, a small part of me felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild something worth holding onto. Then one day, as I was working late, I received a call from a prominent tech magazine wanting to feature my app in their upcoming issue. I was ecstatic, and in that moment, I realized I had created more than just an application. I had created a new identity for myself. As I stood there, feeling the weight of what I had accomplished, I couldn't help but think about how far I had come since Jessica's betrayal. I was no longer defined by that pain. Instead, I was forging a new path. The decision about Jessica still loomed in the background, but I was ready to embrace whatever the future held, whether it included her or not. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that I intended to write on my own terms. The feature in the tech magazine turned out to be a game changer. The exposure led to a significant surge in users for my app, and I found myself navigating newfound opportunities and connections within the tech industry. I was no longer just a guy who had been blindsided by betrayal. I was an entrepreneur, and I was making a name for myself. The excitement of this success filled my days, yet the conversations with Jessica played on repeat in my mind. I had taken steps forward, and I was proud of what I accomplished on my own, but there remained an unresolved chapter between us. One evening, as I prepared for a networking event, I received a text from Jessica. "Hey, can we meet again? I have something important I want to share." I hesitated but ultimately agreed. I wasn't sure what to expect, but there was a nagging feeling that her transformation was worth exploring further. We met at the same cafe where we had our previous conversation, and as I walked in, I noticed her fidgeting with her hands, her expression a mix of excitement and anxiety. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice slightly shaky. I nodded, taking a seat across from her. "Of course, what's on your mind?" "I've been given an incredible opportunity," she began, her words tumbling out in a rush. "A tech incubator reached out to me after they saw my recent work. They want to help me launch my own app, a project I've been working on about self-help and personal growth." I blinked in surprise. "That's great, Jess. Seriously, I'm happy for you." "Thanks. But there's more," she continued. "I also want to apologize again for everything that happened between us. This opportunity made me realize that I need to fully own my mistakes if I want to move forward, not just in business but in relationships too. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know that I'm committed to being better for myself and anyone else I work with in the future." Her words struck a chord. I could see the passion and determination in her eyes, and I felt a flicker of the connection we once shared. "I appreciate that," I replied, my voice steady. "But it's still going to take time to rebuild that trust. It's not something that can be rushed or taken lightly." "I understand," she said earnestly, "but I want to be honest about where I'm at. I'm not asking for anything from you right now. I want to focus on my own growth and work on my project. I just hope that one day we can find a way to be in each other's lives again, whether that's as friends or something more." The sincerity in her voice resonated with me. The journey she was describing sounded genuine. I could see that she was committed to her own growth, and it reminded me of my own transformation over the past few months. "Let's take it one step at a time," I replied, feeling a cautious optimism. "I want to support you, and I'm glad you're pursuing something you're passionate about. Just know that I'm still healing and I need to prioritize my own path right now." "I completely respect that." She smiled, relief washing over her features. "And I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'll always be cheering you on." We spent the rest of the afternoon discussing our respective projects and visions for the future. It felt good to connect on a professional level, and I could sense that we were both growing in ways we hadn't anticipated. As I left the cafe, I felt lighter. There was still a long way to go before we could even think about rekindling anything romantic, but I was beginning to see Jessica in a new light, one that was focused on growth, accountability, and healing. It was a stark contrast to the person I had once felt betrayed by. Over the next few months, we kept in touch, often exchanging ideas and encouraging each other as we navigated our separate journeys. I found it refreshing to see her work hard and genuinely invest in herself. Meanwhile, my app continued to flourish. I was invited to speak at conferences, collaborate with other tech innovators, and even consider expanding my business model. Everything felt like it was falling into place, and I finally recognized the strength that had emerged from my struggles. Then one day, I received an unexpected call. Jessica wanted to invite me to her app's launch party. I hesitated for a moment, memories of past pain flickering in my mind, but ultimately I agreed. It was time to see how far we had both come. The night of her launch arrived, and as I entered the venue, I felt a strange mix of nervousness and excitement. Jessica spotted me right away and rushed over, her face lighting up. "You made it. Wouldn't miss it," I replied with a smile, feeling genuine happiness for her accomplishments. The event was filled with energy and enthusiasm. As Jessica took the stage to present her app, I felt a swell of pride watching her embrace this moment. She spoke passionately about her journey, the lessons she had learned, and the importance of self-help in navigating life's challenges. It was as if I was watching a different person, a person who had truly grown. When it was all over, I approached her and we shared a warm hug. "You did amazing," I said, my voice sincere. "Thank you for being here. It means so much," she replied, her eyes glistening. As the night wore on, we found ourselves talking and laughing, reminiscing about our shared past while acknowledging the new paths we were forging. It was a moment of clarity that I had not anticipated. We were both growing, and it was evident that we had the chance to redefine our relationship. Standing there, amidst the excitement, I realized that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant learning, growing, and sometimes finding a way to move forward, even if it was in a different direction. I felt a sense of peace begin to settle in my heart. Perhaps we could be friends again, and who knows what the future might hold. In that moment, I understood that while betrayal had shattered our past, it had also opened doors to new possibilities. I was no longer the man defined by heartbreak. I was an individual who had discovered his strength and resilience. And with every step I took, I was ready to embrace whatever came next, whether it was a renewed friendship with Jessica or something entirely new. Life had a way of surprising me, and I was ready to see where this journey would lead. The future was unwritten, and I intended to make it one worth living.